With that, let me introduce my good friend, Congressman Dan Lipinski from Illinois.
One week ago, there was great consternation over the HHS mandate. And despite news reports last Friday, nothing has really changed. The rule was filed as is. We have a vague statement about shifting who's going to pay for what, but it's nothing but a shell game. We don't know who it would even cover. All we know is the rule was filed as it was a week ago. Therefore, we still need to pass H.R. 1179 to protect the conscience rights of all Americans. Despite the current views out there that this is all settled, this clearly is not settled. This is not about anyone taking away birth control. This is about religious liberty. And if you ask Americans, do you believe that every individual and every employer should be forced to provide abortion drugs in their health care coverage? I believe a clear majority would say no. We're being led to believe that this is somehow something else that we're talking about here. But that is what this is about. So we need to pass H.R. 1179. I'm glad to join Jeff to make this a bipartisan effort. We have other Democrats on board on this. And get this done, get this passed, and protect the rights of all Americans.
Well said. Thanks, Dan. Let me ask Senator Vinter from Louisiana now. Senator, please come forward.
Thanks, Jeff and Dan. It's great to be with all of my colleagues. I just wanted to briefly make 3 points. First of all, this is a core, important religious liberty issue. Never before in the history of the country have Americans been forced to buy a product, and now it's a product that is opposed to their core religious beliefs in many cases, and that is unacceptable. Secondly, this doesn't just involve contraception, although that is serious enough as it is. It also involves abortion-inducing drugs like Plan B and sterilization. That makes it even more serious an issue. And third and finally, President Obama's so-called accommodation has not changed anything. And everyone who has looked at the substance of that agrees it hasn't changed anything. To play some word game and say, no, the feds aren't telling the entities what coverage they have to buy, they're simply telling the insurance company what coverage they have to provide, doesn't change the reality. That sort of word game and semantics may be good enough for President Obama's conscience. It's not good enough for the conscience of millions of Americans. And perhaps the most obvious case is the fact that you have many entities that are self-insured. So even that fiction, even that word game makes no sense, particularly in that context like the University of Notre Dame, many archdioceses, many Catholic-owned hospitals. So this needs to change. It needs to change in statute, and we're going to make sure it does. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Now we'll go to Congresswoman Jean Schmidt from Ohio, who heads the Pro-Life Women's Caucus in the House of Representatives.
Thank you, and I'm very proud that Jeff had the fortitude to understand that one of the problems with the health care bill that was passed about a year and a half ago was the fact that it might affect what's in our Constitution. Make no mistake, the First Amendment to the Constitution says, Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And then it talks about speech, press, the right of assembly, and the right of redressing. Religion was the First Amendment to this Constitution because our forefathers understood that we might get marred in issues that would compromise everyone's choice to practice their religion on their terms. What this rule has done is trampled on not just the Catholic Church, but also folks that are Catholic that have businesses and have health insurance for their businesses, as well as other religious institutions that may find problems with the whole issue of providing contraceptives or abortion providing drugs. So this is about our religious freedom, and this has been trampled on, and I believe it's imperative that we protect our Constitution. That is our sworn duty.
Thank you, Jean. Let's hear now from Dr. Phil Gingrey from Georgia, head of the Doctors Caucus in the House.
Jeff, thank you. I am Congressman Phil Gingrey, and I practiced medicine for 30 years before being elected to the Congress about 10 years ago. I'm a pro-life Catholic physician, so the sanctity of life means a heck of a lot to me. It means everything to me. I commend Representative Fortenberry, and I know his wife Celeste and their 5 little girls are very proud of his efforts in regard to 1179. And of course Dan Lipinski and the others that join us here on the podium. Jeff's prescience and understanding way back a year and a half ago of that section regarding preventative services, of knowing what's in the bill before a lot of other people had read it, i.e. Nancy Pelosi, and what this could lead to. And clearly, as Representative Schmidt just said, Jean Schmidt from Ohio, that it is a violation. It's a clear violation of the precepts of the First Amendment. And this cannot stand. And this fix that was announced, I guess, last Friday by the administration is no fix at all. Because as Senator Vitter pointed out, many of these Catholic charities and hospitals and maybe Mount Sinai and other religious organizations that employ hundreds and thousands of people, many of that coverage, the health care coverage, is provided under the ERISA law. In other words, they're self-funded, and claims are paid by a third party, and the bill is just submitted to the religious entity that has the conscience clause. So this doesn't solve the problem at all in the aspect of them not having to pay for it. In this business about women not having access to preventative services, look, since 1970, we've been spending hundreds of millions of dollars going to Planned Parenthood, as an example, going to states and the public health clinics that women can access, and indeed even Walmart. Birth control pills, I think, can be obtained for less than $9 a month. So it's a false claim. I'm strongly supportive of 1179. This time I'll turn it back over to Jeff.
Thank you, Congressman Gingrey.